Property assessments are in the mail this week in Calgary, also available online. Now, most residents, you expect, won't find the numbers this year quite as shocking as last year. Overall, home values are up by 1%. That's significantly lower than last year's increase of 15%. Now, city officials say the housing market is stabilizing as the average single-family home in Calgary rises to $706,000, up about $9,000 from a year ago. Now, here to make sense of all of this, Eddie Lee is with us in studio. He's the city's assessor. So a 1% increase, modest compared to what we did a year ago. What's behind that shift?
Yeah, what we are seeing is less net migration to the City of Calgary and Alberta in general, as well as we've seen record housing starts, and that's helped contribute to more supply of housing and sort of moving that housing market to be a more balanced market.
Yeah. So break down the numbers for us based on the kind of home you live in. Like, how much have residential property values gone up or changed depending on the type of home?
Yeah, so for a single residential home, a detached or semi-detached, we're seeing an average increase of about 1%. Whereas if you're in a condominium, we've seen that decrease by about minus 3%. We've also seen rental apartments increase a little bit more at 8%.
Now, we're still, we're making this contrast with last year. Condos last year experienced, on average, a 17% increase, but as you point out, went down by 3% this year. How do you explain the change in the condo market specifically?
Yeah, it was a really, really hot market last year for both condos and single residential. It was a seller's market. There were bidding wars. It was oftentimes that homes would sell for more than list price. And right now, with the greater supply, less demand because of less migration, it sort of changed the story a little bit to be more balanced, more reasonable. And that's what we expect continuing this year.
Yeah. So this year, where in the city are you seeing property values increase the most? So increasing the most would be in communities that have less of a condo market. So so most of Calgary, really. But in the inner city, you would see those communities drop a little bit more just because, in those inner city communities, there are higher numbers of condos. Right. So the suburbs and the kind of residential, like the neighborhoods with more standalone homes.
That's right.
Going up faster, going up more significantly.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the housing market looks like it's stabilized or more balanced, but the average single home value has still gone up by $9,000. Can you explain that?
Yeah, and 9,000, is about 1%.
Yeah, on a $700,000 home. Yeah.
Right. So it isn't that significant. I think we would want to see some appreciation of our people's biggest asset, and but you also probably don't want to see a massive change. However, I would like to reemphasize, in terms of the property assessment system, it is revenue neutral. The city doesn't collect any more or any less taxes based upon the value of a home. It's just about how it's distributed. It's a distribution mechanism in terms of, and it's for fairness and equity wise. Okay,
so let's take a step back here. What remind us the factors that go into the final assessment number for a home?
In assessment or taxes?
Assessment.
Okay. In terms of assessments, we take a look at all the sales that occur in the marketplace. And basically, what we're trying to replicate is what your home would be worth as of July 1st of the previous year. So in this year's case, July 1st of 2025. We would be looking at the exact same factors as any property owner would be when they first bought their home. You take a look at location, the size of the home, if it has renovations, basement development, is it next to Deerfoot Trail or backing on Fish Creek Park. All of those factors matter in terms of the value of the home. And then we would take a look at the recent sales that would have occurred and make a comparison that way to determine the value of your property.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's take the step from the value, the assessed value of the home, to taxation.
Yeah. So the City of Calgary sets our budget, or we set our budget back in December in terms of how much money that do we need from property taxes to fund, the services Calgarians enjoy every day, such as police, fire, streets, pathways, all of those things that we rely upon. So once we set that, we divide that number of how much taxes that we need by the total assessment base. And that is how you get to the municipal tax rate. One thing that a lot of Calgarians might not remember is that a large chunk of property taxes also goes to the province. So last year, roughly 37% of the property taxes went to the province. So the province will finalize their budget at the end of February, beginning of March, and will let us know how much we need to collect from Calgarians to send to the province to fund education. So that piece is still missing. We are estimating that portion will increase quite a bit. So there's two portions to the property tax. So the city's portion and the provincial portion. And once we have those two tax rates, we multiply that by the assessed value, and that's when we get our tax, your total tax bill. We'll calculate that out in May, send it out in May, and they're due on June 30th, 2026.
So, obvious point, but the more valuable your home is, the higher amount, the higher the number is that you'll pay for property tax.
That's correct.
Yeah. So if a property owner at this point wants to at least question and potentially appeal their assessed value, how do they get started doing that?
Yeah. So right now is the time to take a look at that assessed value. Think about whether or not that is representative of the market value as of July 1st, 2025. Take a look at the sales. So we have all of the sales available on our website, calgary.ca/assessment. You can also take a look at the property details that we have on file. Do we have your square footage right? Do we have your basement development, renovations? All of those factors matter. And if you do see a discrepancy or you have further questions, definitely call us at 311. Oftentimes, we are able to resolve inquiries without a formal complaint to Assessment Review Board. But if you need that avenue, that is available. And just a reminder, that final date of complaint is March 23rd.
Yeah. Okay. Final date of complaint, March 23rd, and it starts with a call to 311 likely. So, using past years as examples, but what do you expect the volume of appeals to look like?
So last year we had roughly 3,400 appeals. So 99.4% of our assessments were not under complaint. We do anticipate complaints to be less this year just because of the assessment change is less. So last year, again, for residential overall, we saw a 15% increase. This year overall, 1%.
Yeah. Do you know how many of 3,400 were, I'll say successful, but where the assessment was changed?
I don't have that exact number, but what I can share is out of that 3,400, roughly 70% we were able to resolve without a formal complaint. And then of those that did go forward to the Assessment Review Board, about 40% of those were changed.